Hello and welcome to part 2 in this series. Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this plus sign here and make a new sheet. Now in this sheet, I'm just going to double click on that, the name of the tab or the name of the worksheet. And I'm going to call it Subjects and Study. And then I'll go to raw data. And what I'll do is I'm going to highlight the subjects that the students study and the average number of hours they spend studying outside of class. Put my finger on control and I might highlight the gender data. And it's these 3 columns that I'm going to copy. Go to home, copy, and paste. I'm going to go to cell C5, and I'm going to paste all that data there. Well, what I'll do now is I'll take this number data, go to the border after highlighting it, and just drag it away. Yeah, I just highlighted it, moved my mouse icon to the border, it turned into a white arrow, and I was just able to drag it away, drag it out of the way. And then I'll process this subject data. If I double click here in D15, I can see this student did maths, chemistry, ICT, English. Very hard to search for all that. All that data is in the one cell. I'm going to break that up so that each subject is in a different cell. I'm going to highlight only the data, not the header, only the data. And I'm going to go to Data. And after clicking on the Data ribbon, I'm going to click on Text to Columns. Delimited, that's what I'll select. And then I'll click on Next. Comma, because commas are being used to separate the subject names. The commas are the delimiters or separators. And then I'll click on Next and click on Finish. Let me do that again. Text to... No, I don't need to do it again. It actually worked perfectly. May not look it, but it worked. Let me show you. If I click on D5, I'll type in subject 1. E5, I don't need to type in subject 2. I just autofill across. Highlight these column headers here for the worksheet. Double click on the border. And as you can see, that's worked really well. This here in C5 is the gender. And these are my column headers for the table. Now, everybody does English, whether they like it or not. And all my students study ICT. I don't need those last 2 columns. So I'm just going to highlight columns F and G, do a right mouse button click over the column header for the entire worksheet, and hit delete. Yeah, that worked well. Now, the other thing I might do is I might just click here in column E, where all the subjects are. That's subject number 2. And what I might do is I might click here on this A to Z sort button. Oh, that seemed to work. Now I'm going to be searching by subject name. I might also take this number data and just the data and drag it across here. And give it a nice title. Study time in hours. Yep, that's good enough. So I don't need that anymore. I might just highlight across there the title for the table. Go to Home, Merge and Center, and I'll try to think of a good title for my table. Study time by subject and gender. That's got to be bold as well. And the whole thing has got borders. Every cell has a border. Now that is a very nice table. And I'll be making another table. I want to work out how long people have studied certain subjects. I'm very interested in mathematics, fundamental mathematics. I'm interested in accounting, but I'm not going to type accounting. Well, I double click in here, I press space, accounting. I double click inside this cell here, which is cell D23, and I press space, chemistry. I double click in D24, I press space, global studies. Yeah, I might just do that. You see, the thing is that this data, every single word has got a space in front of it. It really does. And I'm now referring to the subjects that are in column E. But for column D, they don't have a space at the front. I want to work out the average amount of time mathematics students study. But now I'm going to use a function known as average if. Not on the course, but it can be used to earn marks for this assessment task. I press equals. I type in average if. Open the bracket. I'm searching for the word mathematics, comma, in column D. Searching for the word mathematics, comma, but it's in column F where I want the average to be worked out using the numbers in there, only if those numbers correspond to a student studying mathematics. I'll close the bracket, and average if seems to work really well. I'm going to double click in there and put some dollar signs in. Put some more dollar signs in. And now I'll auto-fill down. Yeah, and look, as I suspected, the math students do a lot more study than the fundamental math students. But I'll do the same for the other three subjects, subject number 2. It'll look pretty similar. I'll show you what I mean. It'll be equals. Can't see it very clearly there, but it'll be equals average if, and then I'm going to highlight this area here, the subject, I'm interested if the subject is equal to, comma, space accounting, comma, and if that's true, I want to work out the average of those numbers there. Close the bracket. Might put some dollar signs, some absolute addressing here and here. Press enter. Oh, got a number. I'll autofill down. Wow. So it seems like the fundamental math students and the global studies students really don't do much study compared to the others. Yeah, that was hard to predict. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll just drag this across here. I want this data here to be consistent. So I'll highlight the number data and I'll click on decrease decimal. Click that a couple of times, more than a couple. And now I've got consistency in the number of decimal places that I've got. I'll just double click here on the border between I and J. Well, that looks nice. So what have I got? I've got the subject and I've got the study time in hours. Yeah, that's what I've got. Might make that a bit bigger as well. And I'll highlight these two cells here and merge and center. And I'll type in study time by subject. And I'll highlight these two and make them bold. Highlight the whole thing and put some borders. And now I'm in a wonderful position to draw a graph. And this graph will really tell a very, very interesting story. I'll highlight all this data here. And I'll just make it a standard column graph, I think. I'll click here and choose, no, look, I'll go for 2D column. Wow. And the fundamental mathematics and global studies data there really tell a very interesting story. I'm going to make this chart a bit nicer. It's study time versus subject. I mean, that's what it is. But I click on the graph and I go to design and then I go to add chart element, axis titles, horizontal, and now I've got a axis title for my horizontal axis. I'll do this again, but this time I'll do it for my vertical axis, and I'll type in amount of study in hours, and then I'll double click here where it says axis, and I'll type in subject. Yeah, that's good enough. That's a great graph. And I'll just drag it out the way a little bit. But this is really what graphs are about. Visually displaying data so that the person looking at it can see patterns, major characteristics, and that graph certainly tells a fascinating story. I might draw some more graphs. Might go back to gender and age, and this time I'll insert a pie chart. I might highlight the gender data, the different types of gender, put my finger on control and highlight the frequency or the count. And yet again I go to insert, but this time I click on 3D pie chart. And this is just student gender. Now, it doesn't really tell me. I mean, obviously the males are dominant numerically there, but I'd like more information, so I'm going to click on this. Look, I might make it smaller first up. Yeah, that looks a little better maybe. But the other thing I want to do is I want to click on this pie, do a right mouse button click, and add data labels. Add data callouts. Yeah, much more descriptive. That's a nice graph, and I'll just pull it across here to the side. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I'll just draw one more graph, just one more. Gender and Melbourne. Now, back in gender and age, I had a bar graph, but here, look, I might just draw yet another column graph. So I'm going to highlight all this, and what I might do is I've highlighted the column headers and the gender data, the gender labels or the gender descriptors, but I've also highlighted the numbers, and I'll need those to draw the graph, that's for sure. I'll go to insert, and yeah, look, I'll just insert one more column graph. A pretty boring 2D graph, but nevertheless. Now for this graph, let me see. It's really about average love of Melbourne. It is average love of Melbourne by gender or versus gender. Now, I'll need to click on design, go to add chart element, axis titles, horizontal, do it again, add chart element, axis titles, primary vertical. I'll click here and I'll say average love of Melb out of 10. Oh, that's an awfully long axis title. Might have to do this to make it look nicer. Yeah. And then here I'll just double click and I'll just type in gender or student gender. Yeah. And so now what I've got quite a few graphs here. I've got two there, a third one, and a fourth one. All I need is one more graph. And with that final graph, this little exercise will be over.